See, laser is another topic in module 4. See, in this question bank of module 4, the questions from 8 to 16 are coming under laser. What are the characteristics of laser? The full form of laser is light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. And laser is invented by American scientist Mayman in 1960. Now the laser is an amplified light and its properties are entirely different from ordinary source of light. Laser beam is highly monochromatic, means it has single wavelength. It is emitted in a very narrow frequency band. Laser is spatially or highly coherent, and this property is due to stimulated emission of radiation. Now, coherence means all the light waves are in phase. There is no phase difference between the light waves. The coherence is of two types. One is temporal or time coherence, and the second one is spatial coherence. Laser has spatial coherence and it is also called as transverse or lateral coherence. Here the phase difference of light waves crossing two points on a plane perpendicular to the direction of propagation of the beam is time independent. Laser is highly directional or unidirectional. Hence, the light intensity does not decrease as fast with the distance as it does with ordinary light. The laser beam is extremely bright or high intensity than ordinary light. So these are the main properties of laser beam. Explain induced absorption, spontaneous emission and stimulated emission. See, generally the interactions of electromagnetic radiation, that is photon, with matter are absorption and emission. Now this interaction leads to transition of quantum system such as atom or molecule from one energy state to another energy state. Now if the transition is from lower to higher energy state, then the system absorbs the incident energy and this is called as absorption. And if the transition is from higher energy state to lower energy state, then the system gives out energy and this is called as emission. Now let us consider an atomic system where E1 is the lower energy state and E2 is the higher energy state. And the difference of this energy level is given by delta E, that is equal to E2 minus E1. Now Planck suggested that the photon is having frequency nu is given by this equation. Nu is equal to delta E by h and this is equal to E2 minus E1 by h. See, I already told you the interaction of radiation or photon with the matter are absorption and emission. Now this absorption is also called as induced absorption. And emission, there are two types, spontaneous emission and stimulated emission. Now what is induced absorption? Now it is a process in which atom in the ground state undergoes transition to higher energy state by absorbing energy of the incident photon. Now here in this diagram, this is before the interaction and this diagram is after the interaction. Now before the interaction, so initially the photon carrying energy E is equal to h nu interact with the atom in the ground state, and after this absorption this atom will undergo transition from lower energy to higher energy state. Now this process, induced absorption, can be represented as atom plus photon giving rise to atom star. Here atom star indicates atom in the excited state. So spontaneous emission, this is a process in which without any supply of an external energy or photon, without photon, the atom in the excited state E2, it undergoes transition to ground state E1 by emitting a photon of energy hν. So in spontaneous emission, the atom is already in the excited state, and atom in the excited state is highly unstable. It cannot remain there for a long time. So it will undergo transition from E2 to E1, and one transition leads to emission of one photon. Now the photons emitted in spontaneous emission may not have the same direction and phase, or it is incoherent. An example for this spontaneous emission is glowing electric bulbs, candle flame, etc. So stimulated emission is a process in which atom is in the excited state and it undergoes transition to the ground state under the influence of external energy or photon. So we have atom already in the excited state, and the incident photon carrying energy hν interact with this atom, and as a result there is a transition from higher energy state to lower energy state, and one transition will result in emission of two photons. That is, one is stimulated photon, and along with the stimulated photon there is incident photon also, that is called as stimulating photon. And these two photons, they go in the same direction and they are in phase or they are coherent. Now we can represent this stimulated emission as atom star plus photon giving rise to atom plus two photons, that is stimulated photon and stimulating photon. So the stimulated emission results in the laser beam. See, the spontaneous emission can be represented as atom star giving rise to atom plus photon. Let us move on to the derivation. Obtain expression for energy density of radiation in terms of Einstein's coefficients under thermal equilibrium condition. Let us consider two energy states, E1 and E2. Here E1 is the lower energy state or ground state and E2 is the higher energy state. See, the number of atoms per unit volume, this is called as number density or population in any given energy state. So let us say N1 is the population of the energy state E1 and N2 is the population of the energy state E2. See, let E nu is the energy density of incident radiation or incident photon in the frequency range nu and nu plus d nu. Now to derive this, we have to start with the three possible interactions of radiation with the matter. We know the three types of interactions are induced absorption, spontaneous emission and stimulated emission. So let us start with the induced absorption. So in induced absorption, atom is in the lower energy state E1 and it undergoes transition to higher energy state E2 by absorbing the energy of the incident photon. And the number of such absorptions per unit time per unit volume. This is called as rate of induced absorption. We know in induced absorption, the incident photon carrying energy density E nu interact with the atom in the lower energy state, and as a result there is a transition to higher energy state E2. Therefore we can say this rate of induced absorption is directly proportional to E nu, and rate of induced absorption is again proportional to N1. So we can write rate of induced absorption is proportional to N1 E nu. Now if you remove this proportionality, so if you make it equal, so we can write rate of induced absorption is equal to B12 N1 E nu. This you take it as equation 1. Here this B12, this is a proportionality constant and it is called as Einstein's coefficient of induced absorption. See, next is spontaneous emission. Now here, without any external energy, the atom in the higher energy state E2 undergoes a transition to the lower energy state E1. The number of such spontaneous emissions per unit volume, per unit time, this is called as rate of spontaneous emission. See, in spontaneous emission, the atom is in the higher energy state and it undergoes transition to lower energy state with the emission of photon. Therefore, the rate of spontaneous emission is proportional to N2, that is population of energy state E2. And I can write rate of spontaneous emission therefore equal to A21 N2. To take it as equation number 2. Here A21, this is a proportionality constant and it is called as Einstein's coefficient of spontaneous emission. See, in the previous equation 1, the proportionality constant is B12. This is because there is a transition from 1 to 2, that is in case of induced absorption. Here in equation 2, the proportionality constant is A21. This A21, this is because in spontaneous emission there is a transition from energy state 2 to 1. Next is stimulated emission. See, in stimulated emission, atom is already in the higher energy state E2 and it undergoes transition to lower energy state E1 under the influence of incident photon. Now during this process, for one transition, 2 photons are released. One is stimulated photon and other one is stimulating photon or incident photon. So here in the stimulated emission, the incident photon is H nu, interact with the atom in the excited state E2 and there is a transition from E2 to E1. This transition, one transition will result in emission of 2 photons, stimulated and stimulating photon. Now the number of such stimulated emissions per unit time, per unit volume, this is called as rate of stimulated emission. Now we know this rate of stimulated emission, it depends on the energy density of the incident photon. So rate of stimulated emission is proportional to E nu. This rate of stimulated emission is also proportional to the population of energy state E2, means N2. So rate of stimulated emission is proportional to N2. So I can write this rate of stimulated emission is directly proportional to N2 E nu. If you remove this proportionality, if you make it equal, so I can write rate of stimulated emission is equal to B21 n2 E nu. This you take it as equation number 3. Now here this B21, this is a proportionality constant and it is called as Einstein coefficient of stimulated emission. Let us say that the atomic system that we have considered is at thermal equilibrium. Now at thermal equilibrium, the number of absorptions or number of upward transitions is equal to number of emissions, that is number of downward transitions. So I can write this rate of absorption, that is equation 1. This is equal to rate of spontaneous emission plus rate of stimulated emission. Means equation 1 is equal to equation 2 plus equation 3. Now if you substitute the value of equation 1, 2 and 3, so we can write B12 N1 E nu, that is equation 1, that is equal to A21 N2 plus B21 N2 E nu. Now we have here term with E nu and another term here with E nu. So if you take this to the left hand side, I can write B12 N1 E nu minus B21 N2 E nu. This is equal to A21 N2. Now here E nu is common, so I can take it outside the bracket. E nu into B12 N1 and then minus B21 N2. This is equal to this A21 N2. So therefore E nu you can write it as A21 N2 divided by B12 N1 minus B21 N2. Now you just divide both numerator and denominator by this term, that is B21 N2. So we will be getting this E nu is equal to A21 N2 by B21 N2 divided by this B12 N1 by B21 N2 minus B21 N2 divided by B21 N2. So this term becomes 1. So I can write therefore E nu is equal to A21 N2 divided by B21 N2. You put a bracket, then this term B12 N1 divided by this B21 N2 minus this becomes 1. So I can write therefore E nu is equal to this N2 and N2 will cancel, so it will be A21 divided by B21 into B12 N1 by B21 N2 minus 1. This you take it as equation number 4. Next, by applying the Boltzmann law. Now as per Boltzmann law, we have these standard equations, that is N1 is equal to N0 exponential minus E1 by kT and N2 is equal to N0 exponential minus E2 by kT. Now in this Boltzmann equations, K is a Boltzmann constant and N0 is the total number of atoms in the system. Now since in equation 4 we have this term N1 by N2, so if you take here N1 by N2, so the equation becomes N1 by N2 equal to exponential, so we have this minus E1 divided by minus E2. So this minus E2, if you take it to the numerator, it will be plus E2. So I can write exponential E2 minus E1 by kT. We know that this E2 minus E1 is equal to h nu. So I can write exponential h nu by kT. Next you substitute this N1 by N2 in equation 4. Means in place of N1 by N2, I have to write exponential h nu by kT. So equation 4 I can write it as E nu equal to this A21 by B21. So here we have A21 by B21, then put a bracket 1 divided by B12 by B21 into exponential h nu by kT minus 1. This you take it as equation 5. According to Planck's law, the equation for energy density of radiation at a given temperature is given by E nu is equal to 8 by h nu cube by c cube into 1 by exponential h nu by kT minus 1. This you take it as equation number 6. So this equation 6 is the standard equation for energy density of radiation as per Planck's law. So we have equations 5 and equation 6. Both represent the energy density of radiation at a given temperature. So we can compare equation 5 and 6. So we will get, that is, in equation 5 we have the term A21 by B21, and if you compare it with the 6, so we have this term. So I can write A21 by B21 is equal to 8 by h nu cube by c cube. And here in equation 6, exponential h nu by kT is there, so you can make it 1 into exponential h nu by kT. So you can write equation 5 is B12 by B21, that is equal to, here this is 1. So I can write B12 is equal to B21. So B12 equal to B21 means the probability of induced absorption is equal to probability of stimulated emission. Now in this equation A21 by B21, neglecting the subscripts, so A21 can be represented as A and B21 can be represented as B. So therefore at thermal equilibrium, the expression for energy density of radiation, it can be written as E nu is equal to A divided by B into exponential h nu by kT minus 1. What are the conditions and requirements for laser system? The condition for laser action is population inversion and metastable state. First, let us know about what is metastable state. The energy states of atoms are ground state E1, excited state E3 in the diagram, and metastable state E2. The ground state is the lowest possible energy state of atom, and it is the most stable state where atoms remain for long time or unlimited time. Next is excited state. Excited states are possible energy states of atom which are higher than the ground state. The atom in the excited state are highly unstable, so they remain there for very short time, that is called as lifetime, and it is of the order of 10 to the power minus 8 second to nanosecond. Metastable state. Metastable states are different from ordinary excited state. The atoms in the metastable state will remain relatively long time, which is of the order of 10 to the power minus 3 second or milliseconds. What is population inversion? See, generally atoms always remain in the ground state because ground state is the most stable state of atomic system. So N1 is always greater than N2. But population inversion means N2 is greater than N1. Now to achieve this population inversion, metastable state is required. See, the atoms are in the ground state, and when we supply any external energy, the atoms in the ground state get excited and undergo transition to the excited state E3. The atoms in the excited state are highly unstable. They cannot remain there for a long time, so therefore undergo transition to E2, which is a metastable state. Now as you continuously supply the external energy, there is continuous excitation of atoms from E1 to E3 and then from E3 to E2. So a stage will be reached where the population of E2 will be greater than the population of the ground state E1, means N2 greater than N1, and this condition is called as the population inversion. The three requirements of laser system are pumping, active medium and resonant cavity. First is pumping by supplying external energy. Pumping is the process of exciting the atoms from lower energy level to higher energy level, that is by supplying external energy to the active medium. And this pumping process results in population inversion. What are the different ways of pumping? So energy can be supplied to atoms in different ways, like optical pumping, electric discharge, atom-atom collision by applying potential difference, etc. Now optical pumping means here we make use of light, and example is ruby red laser. Electric discharge, example is argon laser. Atom-atom collision, this is the type of pumping in case of carbon dioxide laser. And in case of semiconductor diode laser or in laser diode, potential difference is applied across the PN junction. The PN junction is forward biased, and by using this potential difference or current, this will achieve the population inversion. Second one is active medium, in which laser action takes place. See, active medium is required for laser action. This active medium is either solid, liquid, gas or even semiconductor. The active medium is enclosed in a resonant cavity. This is the diagram of resonant cavity. See, in the resonant cavity, two electrodes, that is cathode and anode, are sealed inside. One end of the resonant cavity is fully coated with silver, so it acts like a reflecting mirror. The other opposite end is partially coated with silver, through which laser beam is emerging out. The quantum system in which pumping and lacing actions occur, this is called as active medium. Accurate information of active medium about the energy levels and their lifetimes help in identifying metastable states of the quantum system, in which population inversion can be achieved. The third one is optical resonant cavity or laser cavity or resonator. This laser cavity or resonator cavity, the diagram I have explained in the previous slide. It is an active medium bound between two mirrors. One mirror is fully coated with silver, which gives 100% reflection when photons are incident on it, whereas the other mirror is partially coated with silver, through which laser beam is emerging out. Therefore, the mirrors will reflect the photons to and fro through the active medium. Photon moving in a particular direction represents the light wave moving in the same direction. See, when the photon incident on the fully coated mirror, there is 100% reflection, and the light waves which are reflected by this mirror are in same phase. There is no phase difference between light waves, and as a result there is a constructive interference, and because of constructive interference there is a resulting wave. So we have the laser beam which is emerging out from the partially coated end. Discuss three types of vibrational modes of carbon dioxide laser with diagram. Carbon dioxide laser is a gaseous laser, and to understand the working of carbon dioxide laser, we must know the vibrational energy levels of CO2 molecule. Carbon dioxide molecule has two oxygen atoms between which there is a carbon atom. It has three different modes of vibration. One is symmetric stretching mode, and the vibration state is represented as 100. The second one is asymmetric stretching mode, and its vibration state is 001. The third one is bending mode, and its vibration state is 010. Now these three vibrational modes of carbon dioxide with the diagram is explained in the next slide. Here is the diagram of three vibrational modes of CO2 molecule. The symmetric mode, its vibration state is 100. Asymmetric mode 001, and bending mode, its vibration state is 010. See, in symmetric stretching mode, the carbon atom remains stationary, whereas the oxygen atoms vibrate along the molecular axis, either towards or away from the carbon atom. In asymmetric stretching mode, all the three atoms, that is carbon and two oxygen atoms, oscillate along the molecular axis. Here two oxygen atoms move in one direction, whereas the carbon atom move in opposite direction. In bending mode, all the three atoms oscillate but perpendicular to the molecular axis. While vibrating, the two oxygen atoms pull together in upward direction as the carbon atom moves in downward direction, and vice versa. Explain construction and working of carbon dioxide laser with the help of energy level diagram. Now this is the diagram of carbon dioxide laser. Now here we have a discharge tube of length 5 meter and diameter of this tube is 2.5 centimeter. Two electrodes are sealed inside the tube, that is cathode and anode, and these two electrodes are connected to an external voltage, that is DC voltage, which is applied across these two electrodes. Now the ends of this tube is sealed with NaCl or KCl windows, that is called as Brewster's windows. Two mirrors are also fixed on either side of the tube. One mirror is fully coated with silver and other one is partially coated with silver, through which laser beam is emerging out. Now this carbon dioxide laser was developed by Kumar Patel in 1963. It's a molecular gas laser involving a set of rotational vibrational transitions. The CO2 laser operates in far IR or far infrared region, and its wavelength is around 9.6 micrometer to 10.6 micrometer. Now regarding the construction of this carbon dioxide laser, as I said, it consists of a discharge tube of length 5 meter and diameter 2.5 centimeter, which is called as the resonant cavity or laser cavity. Now this tube is filled with a mixture of 3 gases, that is carbon dioxide, nitrogen and helium gas in the ratio 1:2:3. And this carbon dioxide is 10 to 20% at a pressure of 0.33 torr. Nitrogen is 10 to 20% at a pressure of 1.2 torr. And a small quantity of helium is filled at a pressure of 7 torr. Here torr is the unit of pressure. So this is given by torr is LE, and 1 torr is equal to 1 mm of mercury. Now the pressure inside the discharge tube is 6 to 17 torr. Now water vapor, a small quantity of water vapor is also added as additive to the discharge tube. This carbon dioxide molecule may break into CO, that is carbon monoxide, and oxygen during discharge. And these water vapor additives help to deoxidize carbon monoxide into carbon dioxide. The two ends of the tube are sealed with NaCl or KCl windows. Here this is NaCl means sodium chloride or potassium chloride windows, because the material of the window is NaCl or KCl, and these windows are called as Brewster's windows, and it is at Brewster's angle to get linearly plane polarized light. What is Brewster's angle? Brewster's angle is given by Brewster, and it is the angle of incidence for which tan alpha is equal to mu, where alpha is the angle of incidence for the photons and mu is the refractive index of material of the medium on which the light falls. Two optically plane silicon mirrors are fixed on either side of the tube. So we have, this is one silicon mirror which is fully coated with silver, and this is another silicon mirror which is partially coated with silver. This fully silvered mirror is because when the light or photon is falling on it, it gives you 100% reflection, and the laser beam is emerging out through the partially silvered mirror. Now for high power applications, we can make use of gold mirror and diamond or zinc selenide windows. Now this diamond or zinc selenide, they have the same crystal structure. Next is working of CO2 laser. Now this is the energy level diagram of carbon dioxide laser. Now here F1 and F2 are energy levels for nitrogen, whereas E1, E2, E3, E4 and E5 are energy levels for carbon dioxide. F1 is the ground state for nitrogen molecule, whereas E1 is the ground state for carbon dioxide. So we have to write this F1 and E1 in the same level or in the same line. F2 is the metastable state, for nitrogen, and F2 energy level of nitrogen resonates with E5 energy level of carbon dioxide. So we have to write this F2 and E5 in the same level or in the same line. The transition from E5 to E4 in CO2 molecule give rise to IR laser of 10.6 micrometer, whereas the transition from E5 to E3 in CO2 molecule give rise to 9.6 micrometer. 1 micrometer is 10 to the power minus 6 meter. When a suitable DC voltage is applied across the two electrodes of the tube, there is electrical discharge of the gases is initiated. Electrons gets free from gas atoms, and these electrons are negatively charged, so they move towards the positive electrode, during which they begin to collide with the nitrogen molecule in their path. Now this is the collision of first kind, where nitrogen molecules get excited to first vibrational level V equal to 1, that is to F2, which is a metastable state for nitrogen molecule. Now this collision of first kind, this process is represented by E1 plus N2 giving rise to E2 plus N2 star. Here E1 is the kinetic energy of electron before collision. E2 is the kinetic energy of electron after collision. N2 is the energy of nitrogen molecule in the ground state. In the ground state. And N2 star is the energy of nitrogen molecule in the metastable state, that is for V equal to 1. So in first kind of collision, the free electrons collide with nitrogen in the ground state, that is in F1. As a result, the nitrogen molecule get excited to higher energy state, that is F2. And this process of excitation of atoms from ground state to higher energy state, this is called as pumping. Since F2 is a metastable state, there is population inversion in F2 of nitrogen, and the molecules have long life of few milliseconds. Now the energy of E5 of carbon dioxide is same as energy of F2 of nitrogen. Now this N2 star means nitrogen in the excited state, that is in F2, collide with carbon dioxide in the ground state. As a result, there is a transition of carbon dioxide in E1 directly to E5, and there is de-excitation of nitrogen to ground state. Now due to the matching of energy levels, that is F2 and E5, there is resonant transfer of energy taking place between nitrogen in F2 and carbon dioxide in E1. As a result, carbon dioxide is excited from E1 directly to E5, whereas nitrogen molecules, since they lose the energy, so they return to the ground state. Now this type of collision belongs to collision of second kind. So in first kind of collision, the free electrons due to electrical discharge in the tube collide with nitrogen molecules in the ground state, that is F1. As a result, the nitrogen molecules get excited or pumped to F2, which is a metastable state for nitrogen. And in second kind of collision, nitrogen in F2 collide with carbon dioxide molecules in the ground state. There is resonant transfer of energy. As a result, the CO2 molecules undergo transition from E1 directly to E5. At the same time, since nitrogen molecules in F2 lose their energy, so they get de-excited and return back to the ground state. Two main transitions in CO2 molecule give laser in far IR region. One is transition from E5 to E4, gives radiation of wavelength 10.6 micrometer. The another transition is from E5 to E3, give rise to radiation of wavelength 9.6 micrometer. The CO2 molecule from E4 to E3 undergoes inelastic collision with unexcited CO2 molecules and de-excite to E2 level. From E2 level, they collide with helium and water vapor molecules efficiently and return to the ground state E1. Now this CO2 laser has an efficiency up to 30% with power output of few kilowatts. Describe construction and working of semiconductor diode laser with applications. See, the example for semiconductor diode laser is gallium arsenide, that is GaAs, and cadmium selenide, that is CdSe. Now this gallium arsenide or cadmium selenide both are semiconductor materials. Now this is the diagram of gallium arsenide semiconductor diode laser. Now it consists of a single crystal of gallium arsenide, which is a semiconductor material, and it is considered as an active medium. Now this gallium arsenide crystal is doped with the p-type and n-type. And this p and n-type, they meet at the junction, that is called as p-n junction. Now if you connect the p and n side to an external DC voltage or external DC supply, this is called as biasing. We know there are two ways of biasing. One is forward biasing and other is reverse biasing. Now if you connect this P side to positive of the supply and N side to the negative of the supply, it is called as forward biasing. If you connect P side to negative of the supply and N side to positive of the supply, that is called as reverse biasing. Now here in semiconductor diode laser, the PN junction is forward biased. Means, as shown in the diagram, the P side is connected to positive of the supply and N side is connected to negative of the supply. See, when the PN junction is forward biased, then it emits light or laser which is coming from the edge of the PN junction. Now this gallium arsenide semiconductor diode laser, it works on the principle of recombination. See, when the PN junction is forward biased, we know in N type the majority carriers are electrons. In P type the majority carriers are holes. So electrons from N type, they diffuse into P type. They cross the PN junction and reach P side. And when the electrons reach the p side, they undergo recombination with the hole. And one recombination of electron with hole will give rise to a photon. Similarly, from p side, the holes are diffused into n side. The holes in n side, they undergo recombination with the electron. And again, the recombination of a hole with electron will result in a photon. The recombination is due to forward biasing the p-n junction. Hence, it is also called as an active medium. Construction of gallium arsenide semiconductor diode laser. Now, this is the cross-sectional view of p-n junction diode laser. Now, it is a single crystal of gallium arsenide. Now, this single crystal is heavily doped with N and P sections. See, the N section is formed by doping with tellurium, whereas P section is formed by doping with zinc. Here, tellurium and zinc are impurities. The doping concentration is 1017 to 1019 dopant atoms per cubic meter. Now, these P and N sections, they meet at the junction that is called as p-n junction, through which the laser beam is emitted out. See, we have top and bottom surface of this gallium arsenide semiconductor diode laser. This top and bottom surface, they act as an electrode which is connected to the external DC supply. The two surfaces, that is the side surfaces, this and the other opposite one, it is well polished, and one surface acts like a perfect mirror. It gives you 100% reflection when the photons are incident on it, whereas the other surface is a partially reflecting surface through which laser beam is coming out. Next, we have front and back surface. These pair of surfaces are made rough, that is to stop the reflections of photons. See, the overall size of this diode is very small. The width of the sides is 1 mm and width of the p-n junction is 1 micrometer to 100 micrometer. See here, these are pair of planes which are perpendicular to the p-n junction. We have another pair of plane, that is front and back surface, and this pair is also perpendicular to the p-n junction. We have another pair of plane, that is top and bottom surface, and these two are parallel to the p-n junction, and a pair of plane which are perpendicular to the p-n junction, this and this, are well polished, and it acts like a reflecting mirrors to provide perfect reflection to sustain the lasing action. The other two sides perpendicular to the p-n junction means the front and back surface. They are rough surface to stop the reflections of photons. A pair of plane that is parallel to p-n junction means the top and the bottom surface. It acts like electrode which are connected to external supply across which a forward biasing is applied. The current flow through the PN junction due to forward biasing provides pumping and population inversion in semiconductor diode laser. Next is working of semiconductor diode laser. Now here first the PN junction is forward biased, and when the PN junction is forward biased, more electrons are injected into N region and holes into P region. Since N side is connected to negative and P side is connected to positive. Now this leads to the increase in population of electrons in N region and increase in population of holes in the P region. Now if the forward current is low, then the electron and hole recombination results in release of photons due to spontaneous emission, and the PN junction act as a LED and no laser beam is emitted out. So therefore no laser beam is emitted out at low forward current. But when the forward current is increased gradually and when it crosses a limit called as threshold current, then electrons from N side go to higher energy level of depletion region, and the population inversion is attained in this depletion region, and this population inversion is attained in a narrow region, and this narrow zone is called as active region. What is depletion region? See, when the diode is forward biased, the electrons in N side diffuse into P side and undergo recombination with the hole. And each recombination of electron with the hole leaves a positive ion in the N region near the PN junction. Similarly, when holes from P region diffuse into N side, they undergo recombination with electron, and each recombination of hole with electron leaves a negative ion in the P region near the PN junction. So therefore the electron and hole recombination depletes the N and P region by depletion region, and the width of this depletion region, this is called as barrier potential, and this barrier potential for silicon diode is 0.7 volt and for germanium diode is 0.3 volt. Population inversion occurs in the depletion region. It is called active region. As the population of the charge carriers in the depletion region increases, the electrons recombine with holes in the lower energy level of the depletion region. At that stage, a photon is released by spontaneous emission, triggers stimulated emission over large number of recombinations. The stimulated electron-hole recombination give rise to laser beam of high power. The laser beam emitted from edge of the PN junction here, that is why it is also called as edge emitter. Now the energy gap of gallium arsenide is 1.4 eV and wavelength of the emitted laser light is 8400 angstrom. We know the energy gap means it is the gap between valence band and conduction band. Generally, lasers are of two types, hot laser and cold laser. Hot laser means it has high power in watts or kilowatts, and it is applicable for destructive applications, like for example in engineering, metal cutting, metal welding, or drilling a hole in metal, etc. We can make use of hot laser. Cold laser, it has low power of few milliwatt, and it is used for constructive applications, like in medicine, for laser surgery, laser therapy, or laser treatment, etc. Now this hot laser is again divided into continuous laser and pulse laser. Similarly, cold laser is also divided into continuous laser and pulse laser. What is continuous laser? Continuous laser has continuous output, whereas pulsed laser has discontinuous output. The pulse laser output may be in the form of a triangular pulse, trapezoidal pulse, rectangular pulse, sawtooth, etc. Now, what are the applications of semiconductor diode laser? See, the semiconductor diode laser is the smallest and least expensive of all other types of laser, and it is mainly used in optical communication, in reading devices for CD players. Semiconductor diode lasers are also used in laser printers. They are also used in medicine, interferometry, barcode scanners, etc. One of the important applications of laser is as range finder in defense. This laser range finder uses LIDAR technique. What is the full form of LIDAR? That is light detection and ranging. Now this LIDAR is very much similar to radar, but the difference between LIDAR and radar is, in case of conventional radar we make use of radio waves, which are wireless waves, whereas in case of LIDAR we make use of laser light. And this LIDAR technique has wide applications in various fields. Generally, there are three types of LIDAR, and these three types of LIDAR are used for different applications. The first one is laser range finder. Here, range means distance. It measures the distance of the target from the laser device. The second one is called dial. The full form of dial is differential absorption LIDAR, and it is used for the measurement of atmospheric pollution. The third one is Doppler LIDAR, and this Doppler LIDAR is used to find the velocity of the target. See, the operation of laser range finder device using LIDAR technique, this is very much similar to the principle of conventional radar. But this LIDAR technique has more advantages comparatively conventional radar. So this LIDAR is better suited for defense applications. LIDAR gives more accurate data about the distance of enemy target at first sight chance without the personal knowledge. Hence it is used in defense to track the enemy tank few kilometers away very accurately. The accuracy of distance calculation is within 1% of the actual distance. And this aid is used for continuous tracking aircrafts from ground or from air. Construction and working of laser range finder. A typical laser rangefinder has four parts. One is transmitter, next receiver, then computer display and readout, and sighting telescope. Now first is the transmitter. So we have a narrow beam of high powered pulsed laser from solid laser device, that is NDYAG laser, is directed from transmitter towards the enemy target. Now this NDYAG, this is a semiconductor diode laser, and the full form of this is neodymium yttrium arsenic garnite. Now here is the diagram of laser rangefinder. Now this is the laser rangefinder device, and here the laser beam is directed to the enemy target. Next is receiver. The laser beam from the transmitter hits the target surface and it gets reflected back. This reflected signal is called as the echo signal, and this echo signal is received by the photo detector, that is in the laser rangefinder unit. The function of photo detector is to detect the photon or light, and this light is then gets amplified by the photomultiplier, and this amplified light is then fed into the counter, which is in this unit. Now this counter measures the exact time of instant the laser pulses left the unit from the transmitter until they return back at the receiver. The range determined by the counter is displayed in the digital readout filter, which converts the time interval into distance. The receiver has the interference filter, which will filter out the background noise. The telescope allows the operator to read accurate range while looking at the target. Please note, the counter measures what is the exact time required for laser pulses to leave the device, that is from the transmitter, and to hit the target and reflected back from the target and receive at the receiver. So what is the exact time required for this whole path? That is counted by the counter, and this time interval is then converted into distance. What are the advantages of laser rangefinder compared to conventional rangefinder? Laser rangefinder has lightweight, or it is portable. It has high reliability, superior range accuracy. Now what are the uses of laser rangefinder? A portable laser rangefinder is used in fire control system. We can also use it as walkie-talkie rangefinder or police laser, which uses pulsed semiconductor diode laser. This walkie-talkie rangefinder has following features. One is it is compact instrument. It weighs less than 4 kg and it is useful to range objects less than 5 km. Applications of laser in CD for data storage. Now what is CD? CD means compact disc. A small plastic disc on which music or other digital information is stored. in the form of a pattern of metal coated pits from which it can be read by making use of laser light that is reflected off the disk. Now, what is the structure of CD? CD is a circular disk of 12 cm diameter with the shining side and bottom side. The shining side is made of metal and plastic consisting of 3 layers. It is as shown in this diagram. So we have at the bottom there is polycarbonate layer which is tough but it is a brittle plastic, and above that there is a layer of aluminium coated with plastic. Storing of information or data on compact disc. The information is created in digital form in CD by making use of laser beam. Laser beam burns and etches bumps on its surface at certain specific intervals or length on a track. These bumps are called pits. The presence of bump in a fixed length in the track, this indicates 0. The unburned space in specific length of the track obviously remains flat and it is called land, and this land represents 1. Thus, laser beam can store information by burning some lens, that is for zeros, and by leaving some lens unburned, that is for ones, in the binary language. How to read the CD? As the laser beam scans the tracks, it is bounced by a pattern of pits and lands. Photocell converts these into electric pulses in the same order, and electronic circuit turns into binary form, that is zeros and ones. Decoder converts binary numbers into electrical signal, which is in analog form, used for required applications. Evolution of CD. The CD technology was established to DVD, that is digital versatile disc, and further advanced to Blu-ray or Blu-ray disc, that is BD. It is as shown here in the diagram. So here we have CD, then DVD and Blu-ray. Both Blu-ray and DVD are disc with the same dimension as that of the CD. See, the data storage capacity of CD, DVD and Blu-ray disc is given here in this diagram. CD can store up to 700 MB. MB means megabyte. 1 mega is 10 to the power 6. DVD can store up to 4.7 GB, that is gigabyte. 1 giga is 10 to the power 9. And Blu-ray disc, it can store up to 5 times more than that of DVD. And all these three, that is CD, DVD and Blu-ray disc, all have the same dimension, but the storage capacity will be different.